Eshomomo Imodu and TJ Stradeoye in our Abuja studio for FCT Brief. Good morning, guys. Handing over the conversation to you now.
Good morning, Veronica. It's good to hear from you this morning, and quite an interesting part you took with your conversation earlier.
Yeah, good morning, Veronica, and good morning, colleagues. Democracy season, and tomorrow is the June 12th, the almighty June 12th.
Yeah.
But just before we go into what we have for you today, TJ, tomorrow Democracy Day, June 12th.
Years of unbroken democracy.
Yeah, since 1999.
Yeah, it's quite a good one for Nigeria. At least we'll be able to keep it together despite challenges. We've had our ups and downs. Yeah. But Nigerians are resilient people, and I would say kudos. Even with all the hardship and everything, we still stand tall. So it's a good one for
kudos
Nigeria.
To Nigerians for making this thing work.
Yeah, but also the leaders, because they should make things work for
exactly.
Nigerians.
You know, I said kudos to Nigerians, but the leaders must wake up. And enough of saying nascent democracy. 26 years, we can't be calling it a nascent democracy again. We expect Nigerian leaders to give, to make the institutions work. One US president once said, build strong institutions, not strong individuals. We hope that we'll get this on
Of course.
Now, let's give you what we have for you today. Over the past decade, billions of dollars have been siphoned off from vulnerable nations, including Nigeria, by corrupt officials and criminals. While many countries are making strides in recovering these stolen funds, the challenge now lies in ensuring they are used effectively to benefit the communities they were taken from. Asset recovery is not just about getting the money back. It's about ensuring that the recovered funds are invested in society. Nigeria must establish sound frameworks to manage and allocate these resources effectively. Some Nigerians who allegedly stole from the country include the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Jezeni Alese Madueke, former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, late General Sani Abacha, whose wife, Miriam Abacha, is already defending. She said, and I quote, "My husband didn't steal, but saved Nigeria's money," end of quotes.
However, despite Mrs. Abacha's claim, challenges still remain. Corruption within governments, lack of transparency, and inefficient systems can hinder the effective utilization of these repatriated funds. This raises a pivotal question. How can Nigeria improve these processes? As we speak, various organizations are advocating for stronger regulations and public accountability. If implemented effectively, the ghost of lost funds could become a beacon of hope for development. Excuse me. For more on this development, let's speak with Dr. Nwambu Gabriel, who is the Executive Director, Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness. He joins us live in the studio. It's good to have you on our program this morning, Mr. Nwambu.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We also have joining us via Zoom the Deputy Director of Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, Kolawole Oluwadare. It's good to have you on our program this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Well, I'd like to start with you, Mr. Oluwadare. The Abacha loot has dragged on for years with billions recovered. But Nigerians are asking, where is this money going to? I'm aware that SERAP even got a court order for the federal government to explain how about $5 billion was spent. Has the government responded at all, or are we still being kept in the dark?
Thank you very much. The federal government is yet to obey that judgment. So we do not know how much we have in terms of exact figure by the federal government and how those funds have been spent. And it's interesting to know that that suit need not be a suit as it were.
Okay.
We simply sent a freedom of information request to the government, asking these questions like every citizen would want to know in the interest of transparency and accountability. And it was unfortunate that I had to drag on for 2 to 3 years as a public interest lawsuit. And up till now, even though the court had given judgment, Nigerians are yet to know in clear details how much has been recovered, how they've been spent and the beneficiaries of those funds. So the basis of the knowledge that Nigerians have, unless of course there are people who have special knowledge, is the one that is reported in the media in some of the tranches as being returned by different governments. But even the various returns, like the one returned by the US since some years ago in 2 tranches, I believe, we do not know exactly how they've been spent, which again raises the question that perhaps it has not returned the funds its way back to private pockets.
Okay. Let me stay with you. But there's been some explanations in the circle of government that some of these monies will have been invested into some capital projects to build roads, social investment programs, and all that. Is it because you didn't have that response to the Freedom of Information request you sent, that you're saying that you don't really know or you don't have a full detail of what is being spent for? I need that clarity, please.
Thank you very much. So we need to unpack the pronoun you. So in this instance, will be either Sarah or Nigerians. I'm rather stick to you being Nigerians. The Freedom of Information Act mandates public institutions to proactively disclose information, make it available, website, through various means to make this information available. Which means Sarah need not send a Freedom of Information request if that information is already in the public domain. And after we sent the request, we did not get the responses. And that is why I said clearly, the information that I have, and which I believe most members of the public have, unless of course those who may have special knowledge, are the various reportage of the tranches when they are returned. Maybe perhaps the US government says it's returning $500 million or so from New Jersey and the likes. We hear about that in the media. But that is not enough. We need to know how those funds have been spent. And it's not enough to say they've been invested in this and that. To know clearly how much was received, where and how it was invested and spent, and the beneficiaries. If it was used to construct roads, where is the road? How long, how many kilometers was the road? Who got the contract? And so, and we don't even need to send a Freedom of Information request to have access to that kind of information. Every Nigerian who are victims of that theft has the right to know. And that is what the Freedom of Information says. And that is what is good practice to strengthen transparency and accountability. Which is why, again, the aim is to ensure that these monies do not find their way into private pockets. Right. In the absence of accountability as to how these funds have been spent, we do not know. It might have been omitted. We do not know. And that is why we have gone to court to enforce that right, which again we do not know. But it will be interesting if you have the facts of the specifics of how those funds have been spent. I'll be willing to hear it, really.
All right, Oluwadare, Mr. Oluwadare, we'll come back to you. Mr. Nwambu, Mariam Abacha just recently made a statement, and in her claim she says her husband kept the money that we refer to now as the Abacha loop for Nigeria. How do you think Nigerians are receiving this, especially organizations like yours? What do you think about this statement?
Thank you so much for your question. You see, General Sani Abacha is a general in the Nigerian army that ruled Nigeria between 1993 to 1998. And a lot of experts view that he's one of the worst and most corrupt dictators in the world, you know. Yes, the wife of the late Abacha has made a statement, you know, that the money was saved for Nigerians, you know. But some of us have actually questioned, you know, do you save money without the consent of the real owners of the money? Nigerians are not aware. If you are saving money for the nation, you know, there are procedure, there are, you know, legitimate means of, you know, official means of such monies and such funds being saved. But if it is crowded with secrecy, if it is the people that own the money, which is the populace of the Federal Republic of Nigeria are not aware. Nobody is aware, until the death of the said Sani Abacha. Most of us opine that such statements are more of just political statement to defend a deceased person. It is not correct, because you can't save money without the consent or the knowledge of the entire country. These monies are stacked in different countries. You see, the repatriation were done. The US is involved, Switzerland is involved, the UK is involved, Jersey, so many countries. So you see, that statement, I think it is laughable. Because Nigerians do not believe it.
Okay, Dr. Nwambu, let's look at it this way. It's Abacha, the former head of state, that is said to have helped Nigeria to save this money. But there were also other leaders of institutions that period. You had the CBN governor, you have some critical state institutions that probably played a role. Shouldn't we also ask those individuals, instead of just saying, okay, Abacha, what role did they play? If indeed he said, was it probably with the connivance or the participation of the CBN, for instance? Who were those people in charge at that time? If we want to have a holistic look at that administration, or even administration after then, how have you managed our public fund? Should we just single out the man at the helm of affairs and forget about those also who have responsibility in the various institutions? For instance, the CBN. Because if government is saving money for the nation, definitely the CBN will play a role. Probably the CBN knows something that we don't know.
Yeah, sure. If Nigeria is, as a nation, you see, and that is why so many people, until recently, that we want to investigate a particular matter, we have to, make it holistic so that the result will be reasonable. Just like a book written by one of the head of states who also claims that the annulment of the June 12th, was caused by Abacha. Abacha is dead, he's deceased, so he cannot speak for himself anymore. So many people say it's Abacha, and Abacha is late. Although the family of Abacha has also said that the man is not even responsible for the annulment of the said June 12th. So, but we cannot ask the dead because the man is no more to answer. But there is no way such fund could be moved from Nigeria to some other countries without the collaboration of, say, the CBN governor and probably some major actors, as it were, because it's a nation, it's not an individual fund. And the money is huge. It's not even in one country. There are so many countries where this money is stacked out, where it is kept. Although the repatriation has commenced. But what we are worried about is that the repatriated funds might be rerouted. Although government, the past administration, has said that the repatriated fund had been tied to projects like construction of Abuja-Kanu Expressway, construction of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, construction of the second Niger Bridge in the southeast. But the question we keep asking is, to what extent? Who evaluated this? At a point, they brought in the World Bank to assess some parts of the projects, like the release disbursement of funds that was done around 2006 to individual, impoverished persons and all that. But what is the extent of the participation of the civil society? Are we aware? Tell us how many kilometers of road. What is the quality of job? If you have if we have so much money between $2 billion and $5 billion, in fact, some experts say that the money is as much as $5.12 billion. We ask very pertinent questions. Why are we still borrowing if we have that much? Why are we still borrowing? So the issue is not whether the money was stolen. We are interested in the repatriated funds so far. What is the level of accountability? I must give the greatest respect to Fagbemi, the Minister of, that is the Attorney General of the Federation, Fagbemi SAN, with the greatest respect. It is now we are beginning to see some level of transparency, because the previous administration, the issues that surround Obla and who was in charge of, funds that are stolen and all that, and then the former Mr. Malami SAN, the issues, with the is something we cannot even start talking in the national television.
Well, Dr. Nwambu, I will come back to you. But Mr. Oluwadare, do we still have you?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm still here.
You heard Dr. Nwambu speaking about accountability. Some civil society groups were asked to monitor how the last batch of Abacha loot was spent under the Buhari administration. But the question is, did they really do their job in following up that money, or should they also be blamed for poor oversight?
Thank you very much. I really do not have details of these, the information you just provided about some civil society organizations. And it's always very interesting to hear the words civil society organization used in this loose sense. Who are those civil society organizations? What are their names, their pedigrees, their areas of work, their impact? And then what specifically is the mandate that, under which legal framework were they empowered to do that? And again, what is the result of whatever assessment they've done? I'm hearing this for the first time, by the way, which again contributes to the what we've seen as lack of transparency and accountability in the management of funds. In the Buhari era, the popular advocacy that had gone, and Sarah Pat also advocated for that, was the passage of a legal framework to manage recovered assets. And President Buhari signed that into law in 2022, just the twilight of his administration, which is the Proceeds of Crime Act. So as from then, that is the law that governs proceeds of crime, including those that are gotten through, those that are forfeited through non-conviction based asset recovery or forfeiture mechanisms, which is civil, and even those that involves repatriated from foreign countries like the Abacha loot. So if there has been no transparency that would involve calling civil society, as you've said, which I really find it very hard to believe that that's credible, and the law has come into effect since 2022, it would mean that whatever has happened about 2022, at least from 2022, we should begin to see a much more clearer process of management of these assets. And Abacha loot is just one of the aspects or instances, if you may, of recovered loot. There are other ones, two other criminal activities that has been recovered since 2022, even this year. And that is why what needs to be done is to ensure that all these processes are transparent. The Proceeds of Crime Act is very clear. And so the various agencies, which stand the relevant agencies, that administer various aspects of what you call recovered loot or forfeited assets. In fact, the law creates an account in the central bank called the Forfeited Properties Account at the central bank, where all the proceeds should be paid. And the law also mandates these relevant agencies to also maintain clear records. So the question is, whatever has happened before 2022, which we are still advocating about, on the one hand, what about what should be happening since 2022 under the Proceeds of Crime Act, which Nigerians should know? And it's just not one agency. There's a lot of agencies managing this, including the customs, the FCC, and various other agencies who are engaged in probably recovering proceeds of crime and managing it. And I think that that is the conversation we need to start having. If Serap had to go to court before the Proceeds of Crime Act was passed to get information on Abacha loot, other forfeited properties, do we still need to go to court to get these government agencies to provide clear details on how much they have recovered and how they've been spent? So Abacha loot is just a typical example of how recovered loot or forfeited properties have been managed. There are lots more that perhaps will eclipse Abacha loot in terms of quantity.
Still staying with you, it's good you just talked about the Proceeds of Funds Act. Now, is it that we have some shortcomings in this particular act, and we feel that certain areas should be amended? Because going forward, like you rightly said, we have several other means where the proceeds of crime have been, such resources come into the system and it's not properly managed. So what do you think should be done? Is the act okay the way it is? Or do we need to have another amendment of this act so that there will be transparency, and also we'll have it empowering the various civil societies and bodies to properly oversight and ensure that whatever is recovered from crime is used judiciously for the best interest of the overall public?
Thank you. I do not necessarily think the act needs to be amended. And again, laws anywhere, the way they are being a vehicle of social change, are not perfect. Context changes, things change. So the Proceeds of Crime Act, like every other law, is not perfect. But the issue, I must say, has always been impunity. And it's not only restricted to laws like the Proceeds of Crime Act. Impunity on one hand and the lack of political will to enforce our laws on the other hand, that is a problem. So even if we identify gaps in poker, which is a Proceeds of Crime Act, and the law is amended, to which extent have we even, by we I'm referring to the various public institutions and agencies that have responsibility that they have they obeyed the existing law? If we do not see to impunity and the lack of political will from the highest office in planning, including the office of the president, amending the law will not help. There are various good provisions in the Proceeds of Crime Act as it were. It clearly identifies the agency. In fact, like I've mentioned, in Section 68 creates a dedicated fund in the central bank where agencies should pay in all these monies. The Act also provides that it shall be audited annually. So, are there not beautiful provisions? So, do we know how much we have in the account in central bank? Which agency has paid what and when was it paid? How is that account being managed? And so the Freedom of Information Act is there already, that says that public institutions should proactively disclose these kinds of information. If you go to the website of the Debt Management Office, you would see how much Nigeria owes in terms of public debt and the various sources and of the debts that we owe. Why can't we have these relevant agencies under POCA also give out, proactively disclose, perhaps by publishing on their website, how much they've contributed to that account in CBN, who has contributed what, and how those funds have been spent? It's very easy. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the Proceeds of Crime Act needs to be amended. But the same impunity that has been witnessed in Nigeria for a long time, where court judgments are not obeyed, where public officers get away with doing what they like, will also affect the act even if it is amended. So even if it is reviewed and there are areas to review, and I do believe there are, okay, it's the impunity that we've seen and the disdain for the rule of law that would make the amended Proceeds of Crime Act also not be able to fulfill its obligations. The law is very beautiful, as it were, but to what extent has it been obeyed in terms of the various agencies, the transparency and accountability indexes that they need to fulfill in terms of the law?
All right. Well, Dr. Nwambu, let's address the big elephant in the room. Since the Abacha days, has democracy helped to make government more accountable and transparent, or is it just corrupt? We're still battling corruption, just different faces?
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, before you answer that, we'll need to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back to that. Stay with us. There's still more on the program. We'll be right back. Still FCT brief, and we're still discussing asset recovery. We still have with us Dr. Nwambu in the studio, and we still have with us a representative of SERAP, Mr. Oluwadare. Well, I was asking you a question, Dr. Nwambu, before we went on the break. I said, in comparison with the Abacha days, and now that we are in a democracy, would you say that government is now more accountable and transparent, or is just corruption wearing a different face?
Well, thank you so much for your very intelligent question. You see, what has beclouded Nigeria is a continuing corruption. You know, we do not have the requisite accountability. We do not have the requisite transparency and due process in Nigeria. Otherwise, we just saw the recently published recovery, you know, from the former CBN governor, Emefiele, you know, about more than 750 duplexes owned by an individual, you know. That's not the monetary side of it, you know. He has a lot of fiscal cash and all that. So, what is really happening? You know, sometimes you wonder why this kind of thing is happening in developing countries like Nigeria. You know, if an individual could have 750 duplexes to himself, you know, within a little space of time, he just came, you know, into government, you know, towards the end of Goodluck Jonathan and then the Buhari's administration, you know, and he owns that much. Well, what do we still have the transparency that is required for such public officer that was under oath not to steal, and he did all this? So you see, we still have a continuing corruption in Nigeria, and there's no difference so far. Although the present administration is trying its best, you know, to put things right, because we are coming from a trajectory. That is, the trajectory is we are coming from a battered system that is full of corruption. The present administration is trying to do something different from what it used to be. So I think it is not yet uhuru. It is work in progress. The present administration is trying, but there is room for improvement to get more accountability and transparency in government.
Okay, now talking about the institutions, who now oversight the oversight organization? What I mean is you have government institutions, there should be bodies that are oversighting them. There should be civil society, for instance. Now, who oversight the various civil societies? Because if we're saying government should come clean, we're also saying Nigerians should come clean. We're saying the various civil societies should also come clean, so that if you have a responsibility to oversight, you should do it judiciously. So how can we ensure that the various institutions of government and also private institutions are properly oversighted? In 30 seconds.
Yeah. You see, basically, government institutions are being oversighted. That is, the institution that is responsible for oversighting government institution is the National Assembly. You know, that is the due diligence there. And because the civil society are not, we don't meddle with government funds. You know, what are you oversighting? Who are you oversighting? Where is the money? You know, for instance, I have never done a contract in my life. I have never done a business. I've never held any position in government. So you are coming to check if I'm doing storage for palm oil to get money to sell thereafter. So what are you oversighting? So it becomes so it is key government institutions that have to be oversighted properly. And the government agency, the arm of government responsible for that is the National Assembly. That is the House of Reps and the Senate, respectively.
All right, Mr. Oluwadare. All right, it's a pleasure speaking with you. We've run out of time. I would have loved to ask you what you think about, you know, organizations like the EFCC. They are effectively doing their jobs, but I don't think we have that time to take that question. But we must say thank you so much for your time with us on the program this morning. It was a delight speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. You can go ahead with your question. I hear we have a little more time.
With your response.
With your response, rather. I hear we have a little more time.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Perhaps that's more like a second chance. That's good. The FCT appears to have made some significant progress in the fight against corruption in terms of tackling corruption. But what the FCT needs to do more is to demonstrate to Nigerians the ability to go after political corruption in terms of those who hold either political offices by appointment or by election who have been seen or perceived or alleged to have been corrupt. When we look at the indices of the conviction rates for EFCC, which they publish annually, there has been a steady growth in the conviction rate. But when you look at the number in terms of those commissioned, those who are public officers or those who are private citizens, you will see the disparity in terms of the number of public officers is they are relatively small compared to those of private citizens. And that is where I think the EFCC needs to do more. And in terms of the question you had asked earlier about the oversight of government agencies, a very key important another aspect is that of the Freedom of Information Act, which the Attorney General of the Federation in Section 30 of that Act has the power to collect reports and publish annually of government agencies, how many FYI requests have they received, how many has been responded to, how many has been declined, and what are the reasons for declining those requests. That is a good accountability tool, which is overseen by the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that public institutions are accountable to the public.
All right, so we say thank you. That's where we have to leave the conversation today. We appreciate your contributions on the program. Thank you, Mr. Oluwadare, and also Dr. Nwambu. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Well, that's our conversation today. We hope that you enjoyed it. We'll now hand you over to our Lagos studio where Veronica and the rest of the crew are standing by to continue with the rest of the show. Veronica.
All right. Thank you, Tijesu, for bringing us up to speed with that interview. Thank you, Eshamama, as well. Back in Lagos, it's time.